The missed call flashed at 3 a.m., and my chest turned to glass that wouldn't break. I stared until the screen dimmed, and the dark pressed closer. Maya said, "Ethan, pick up." The silence felt rehearsed. A notification slid in, a tag from a friend who never posts late. I opened it, and the world lurched. There he was, my ocean away, smiling at a rooftop bar that wasn't our plan. Lauren stood beside him, her hand on his sleeve like it belonged there. "Maya said," he said over time. The word cracked like ice. I counted the weeks of excuses, the time zones we blamed, the promises we stretched thin. The caption read, "Work family wins again." My breath rattled. Jonah had warned me about patterns, about how absence can be a shape. Maya said this hurts, because I still believe him. I pinched my wrist, begging the room to stay steady. The playlist kept looping our song like a cruel joke. I zoomed in on Ethan's eyes, bright with a joy I hadn't seen in months. Maya said, "Who are you busy with?" The night answered nothing. The call rang and rang until it died like a wave on concrete. I stared at the ceiling as if an answer hid in the cracked paint. Maya said, "You're on a rooftop, not at work." I rehearsed a line that sounded brave and couldn't finish it. The clock blinked 3:09, and the rain learned my name. I scrolled the comments where coworkers tagged each other with inside jokes. Maya said, "When did I stop being inside?" I remembered our first promise to never let silence win. The promise had gathered dust. My mother's warning echoed about men who love the idea of devotion. Maya said, "I built a home out of waiting." The song hit the chorus we saved for reunions that never happened. I wanted to hurl the phone and also beg it to sing. I typed a message and erased it, then typed again. Maya said, "Call me now, please." The cursor blinked like a heartbeat I could not slow. The voicemail greeted me with his cheerful midday voice, as if joy lived in his pocket. I listened to the beep and hung up without speaking. Maya said, "You sounded happy for someone drowning me." I opened our old chat and saw sticker hearts from another season. The scroll felt like walking past closed doors. Jonah's last message said I deserved presents, not postcards. Maya said, "You always were too honest." The rooftop photo returned to my mind like a bruise blooming. I imagined the wind carrying their laughter across 8 hours of sky. The rain softened, and the silence grew teeth. I tried to pray for patience and found only anger. Maya said, "Tell me the truth before the truth finds me." My throat tightened around words. I couldn't swallow or spit. I typed to Jonah because he answers when storms begin. The bulls danced, then his reply landed like a hand on my shoulder. Jonah said, "You saw what you needed to see." I wanted to argue that angles lie and captions mislead. My heart begged for a loophole. Maya said, "Maybe it was a team outing." Jonah said, "Then why didn't he tell you?" I stared at the question like a doorway I feared. The room smelled wet and electric. My playlist suggested new songs as if memory could be replaced. Maya said, "He told me work kept him busy." The words felt brittle and sharp. I thought of our last video call where he looked tired but secret happy. The night curled around me and refused to let go. I opened the rooftop photo again and studied the space between them. My mind measured inches like they were miles. Lauren's hand rested in a way that assumed history. Maya said, "What history is that?" I checked timestamps and cursed time zones for being accomplices. A taxi horn bled through the rain and felt like a laugh. I drafted a message to Ethan and saved it in notes, afraid to send. Maya said, "If I ask, I can't unknow it." My body felt emptied out, and still somehow too full. The rain slowed to a whisper, and the city held its breath. I set the phone face down and watched the dark move. Maya said, "Answer me, and let it be mercy." Morning light leaked through blinds like it didn't care what it revealed. My eyes burned from hours awake, and my chest felt hollow. Maya said, "This is what love costs me." I pulled on yesterday's jeans and let the fabric hang heavy. The phone buzzed with a calendar reminder, our 1-year call anniversary. The irony sliced sharp. My hand hovered, unsure if celebrating mattered when truth lurked. I thought of his smile, the one that once made oceans tolerable. Jonah's words echoed, love doesn't survive when it only feeds on waiting. Maya said, I still cling because silence has its own gravity. I checked my reflection in the mirror, and the circles beneath my eyes told stories I hadn't written. A knock at the door jolted me, and my mother's voice broke the air, asking if I was okay. I wanted to answer with a lie, but lies wrought slow. Maya said, I'm fine, though nothing in the room believed me. The kitchen smelled of burnt toast because I forgot to flip it. My mother leaned on the counter, arms folded, her gaze sharp yet worried. She said, you can't keep waiting for someone who forgets you. I wanted to protest, to defend him, but words crumbled in my throat. Maya said, he's just busy. She arched an eyebrow that knew more than I wanted to admit. The clock ticked louder than it should, mocking me. My hands trembled as I poured coffee, spilling drops like punctuation. She said, love shouldn't feel like begging. Maya said, but I promised. Promises had turned into chains, and every link felt heavier in this kitchen silence. My mother reached for my hand, and her warmth almost undid me. I looked at her face and saw both warning and love etched deep. The toast smoked, the alarm chirped, and the truth refused to wait. Later, I walked outside where the street still held last night's rain. Puddles mirrored a sky trying to brighten. Jonah called, his voice crisp through earbuds. Jonah said, you're tearing yourself apart. Maya said, I just need proof I matter. He sighed, the sound carrying centuries of honesty. He said, proof isn't hiding in another woman's hand on his arm. My steps echoed against pavement, and every sound felt amplified. I thought about the rooftop photo again, the way Ethan laughed freely. Maya said, what if I'm wrong? Jonah said, then let him show you. His steadiness steadied me, but only for a moment. The traffic light turned green, and strangers hurried past like they had places worth reaching. I envied them for their certainty. The phone felt heavier pressed to my ear, as though holding the weight of both hope and betrayal. Back at my room, I opened Ethan's old letters saved in a box under the bed. Paper smelled faintly of ink and distance. I'm involved here. Each line promised forever, and each signature felt like a lie now. Maya said, you swore distance was nothing. I traced his handwriting until my vision blurred. My chest pressed heavy with memories that wanted to be illusions. Jonah's voice still rang in my ears, but so did Ethan's promises, the ones that once built my courage. I wanted to burn them and also cradle them forever. Maya said, why can't love be honest? The letters slipped from my hand and scattered like fragile leaves. Outside, a dog barked, pulling me back into the present. My heart pounded, as I realized forever might have expired quietly, hidden behind excuses and silence. I finally sat at the desk and opened a blank message screen. Words stumbled onto digital space. Do you still love me? I deleted them, then typed, are you with her? The cursor blinked, daring me to breathe. Maya said, if I send it, the silence ends. But endings can destroy. My fingers hovered, unsure if I wanted truth or mercy. I imagined him reading it, his face twisting, his thumbs racing to justify. Or maybe he wouldn't reply at all. The fear of nothing felt worse than lies. My reflection in the dark laptop screen looked like a stranger. Maya said, how did love turn into this? The cursor blinked again, like a heartbeat mocking my hesitation. The room around me faded, and only the screen remained, holding the weight of what I couldn't yet release. By afternoon, my phone became a lighthouse that no ship answered. I watched the typing bubble appear and vanish like a cruel tide. Maya said, say something real. His reply arrived late and polished. Ethan said, swamped, team deadline tonight. The words were a tie, and never looked me in the eye. I pictured the rooftop lights still winking behind his excuses. Maya said, "Deadlines end. Silence doesn't." Jonah called between meetings and told me to breathe before I broke. He said, "Needing clarity isn't weakness." I stood by the window and let the city's noise argue with my heart. Maya said, "If love is here, let it answer." The hour stretched thin until it hummed like a wire about to snap. The day we planned to celebrate my delayed birthday arrived like a dare. I set out 2 plates and a cake I did not want to taste alone. Ethan texted that a client dinner just appeared. Maya said, "So did my disappointment." I read the message twice to find a crack for hope. There wasn't one. My mother knocked and offered to stay, but I shook my head. The candle flickered like it was choosing sides. I pressed call and listened to the ring tunnel into a voicemail. Ethan said, "Leave it after the beep," and the beep felt like a cliff. Maya said, "I wish you were the man I defended." The candle bent, and wax pooled into a patient, silent lake. I opened social feeds like a person touches a bruise. Lauren's stories stitched the evening together without trying. Laughter crowded the frame while captions pretended to be casual. Maya said, "How accidental is a hand that lingers?" The skyline behind them glittered like it had secrets to sell. Jonah messaged a single question that hurt. "Are you okay?" I typed yes, and sent no detong. My thumb hovered over unfollow, but I needed the map of betrayal. Maya said, "If truth is ugly, look anyway." The next clip showed Ethan raising a glass with teammates I had never met. My chest folded around a breath and forgot the way out. When he finally called, I answered on the first quake of the ring. His voice was bright, the kind people wear at work. Ethan said, "Big night, landed a lead." I congratulated him and set my hope on the table like a chipped cup. Maya said, "Who is Lauren to you?" The pause walked into the room and sat down. He said, "New hire, friendly, team energy." The words tried to move past me, but I blocked the door. I asked why he hadn't told me about the event. He said he forgot, and that I worry too much. Maya said, "I worry because I'm alone in this." The call ended with a promise to talk tomorrow, and tomorrow suddenly felt hostile. An unfamiliar coworker DM blinked at midnight like a conscience. She wrote that the rooftop wasn't a formal event and that Ethan left with Lauren. My body cooled from the inside out. Maya said, "Thank you," and the word scraped. I asked for certainty, and she sent a second photo with their backs leaning close. The distance between them felt measured by trust I no longer had. Jonah said, "You have what you needed." I stared at the screen until the pixels stung. I wanted to be wrong so badly that it ached. Maya said if I ask him again, I lose the last soft place. The city fell quiet, and the quiet felt like a verdict. The truth didn't arrive gently. A message pinged from a coworker I barely knew, warning me not to trust the rooftop story. Attached was a photo not meant for my eyes. Ethan's arm curved around Lauren's waist, his smile softer, private. Maya said, "This wasn't work." My hands shook as I opened and closed the image, as though repetition could blur reality. I thought of all the hours spent defending him, the lies I spoke to my own heart. Jonah's words echoed, "Silence has a shape, and it is never innocent." Maya said, "If this is what loyalty bought me, the price is cruel." The room swam, the screen burned. I closed my eyes and still saw their closeness. Somewhere, a siren wailed in the city, as if mourning on my behalf. I wanted to scream, but only a whisper escaped. I confronted Ethan with the image. My voice cracked before I could shape it into anger. Maya said, "Who is she really?" He hesitated, long enough to confirm what I feared. Ethan said, "She's just a friend, I swear." The word friend collapsed under its own weight. I pressed further, my questions rising like floodwater. He said he didn't tell me because I would overthink. Maya said overthinking isn't worse than being betrayed. His tone grew sharp, blaming distance, blaming my doubts. I bit back my shaking breath. He said, "You don't trust me anymore." I wanted to scream that trust was already broken, and not by me. The call ended with a click that felt like a slammed door. Silence filled every corner of the room, louder than his voice ever was. Hours later I replayed the call, searching for tones between his words. Every pause carried more truth than the sentences themselves. Maya said, "I believed every promise you whispered." Now those promises felt counterfeit. I sat on the floor among scattered letters, each one a relic of devotion. My chest ached with the weight of holding on too long. Jonah texted, reminding me I deserved more than scraps. Maya said, "But how do you unlove someone woven into your skin?" I closed my eyes, the rooftop photo burning through lids like sunlight. The betrayal was not a wound but an infection spreading. My throat hurt from swallowing everything I wanted to scream. The clock hands dragged and mocked. Love, once sanctuary, now felt like a locked room with no air. By evening I couldn't breathe under the weight of not knowing more. I scrolled Lauren's profile, piecing fragments like a detective unwilling to stop. No yad. Each photo felt like salt. Maya said, "What else has he hidden?" A caption mentioned late nights at the office, tagged with Ethan's name. The comments painted laughter I wasn't invited to. My chest clenched as though my heart wanted to refuse its own beat. Jonah called, his voice softer now, like he knew I was breaking. He said, "Don't chase proof that already hurts." I whispered, "I had to, because closure doesn't arrive on mercy." The rain returned, tapping the window as if echoing my pulse. Maya said, "Every truth I find carves me smaller." The twist wasn't only betrayal, it was what he confessed when cornered. Ethan said, "I didn't want to tell you because I'm not sure I want this anymore." The words slid out cold, deliberate. Maya said, "So distance was just an excuse." My body went numb, as though my veins froze. He said he loved me, but also loved his freedom, that I held him tighter than he wanted. My heart cracked so loudly I swore he heard it through the phone. I realized the rooftop wasn't an accident, but a mirror of his truth. Maya said, "You ended us before I had the chance to fight." He went silent, not to protect me, but to protect himself. The call ended, and with it the illusion I had carried like a lifeline. I called and didn't rehearse, because truth should not need practice. Ethan answered with a careful hello that felt like a trap. Maya said, "Say it clean." He sighed and asked why I was making this so hard. The question landed like a slap, dressed as logic. I told him I had photos and silence and a body that learned to fear nighttime. He said I was reading into things he never promised. The word "promised" split the room like lightning. Maya said, "You told me we were building a future." He blamed distance and deadlines, and the way I need reassurance. I said, "Reassurance is oxygen, and I have been suffocating." He muttered that he never asked me to wait like this. Maya said, "You loved the waiting because it asked nothing of you." The line crackled, and I realized I had finally stopped begging. He tried to pivot, offering soft memories like bribes for my doubt. Ethan said, "Remember our sunrise call on the ferry?" I remembered, and it burned brighter than the rooftop. Maya said, "I am not a scrapbook for your guilt." He went quiet, then asked if I would visit soon to reset us. The word "reset" felt like a broom sweeping shards under a rug. I told him reset without remorse is repainting rot. He said I was dramatic and that none of this was proof. I said, "Proof is how you make me feel smaller than your night out." He asked if I wanted him to confess to something he didn't do. Maya said, "I want you to choose me when I am not convenient." The candor shook even my doubts, and the room finally listened. He said Lauren meant nothing, and everything was team spirit and timing. The words sounded like a brochure left in a storm. Maya said, "Then why did you hide it?" He blamed my history of worry like it was proof of unreason. I said, "Worry grows where clarity starves." He exhaled and asked what I needed to hear to calm down. The condescension slid cold down my spine. Maya said, I need respect that does not negotiate with convenience. He asked if this was an ultimatum. I said it was a boundary arriving late, but alive. He said, I was making him the villain. I told him I was just turning on the light. He asked if we could pause this until tomorrow. Maya said, tomorrow has been eating me for months. I told him I would not compete with his freedom or his secrets. The words felt like a door unlocking from inside. Ethan said, so this is goodbye. The sentence was too neat to be kind. Maya said, this is me choosing air. He asked if I would regret it when the nights got loud again. I said the nights were already loud, but at least they would be honest. He said he cared, and that should count for something. I said caring without action is a lullaby for cowards. Silence sprawled and would not move. I heard his breath, and it sounded like relief, which told me everything. Maya said, I'll send your things to an address that answers back. After the call, my legs shook like they had been holding a bridge alone. Jonah rang without asking, and stayed present while I breathed. He said, you did the hardest part. I stared at the cake on the counter and felt nothing sweet. Maya said, I thought love would keep me soft. He said, softness is not surrender, and I believed him a little. My mother hovered in the doorway and did not say I told you so. She said, eat something, and then sleep. I nodded because instruction felt like a raft. I boxed the cake and wrote a note to the girl who waited, promising her she could stop. Maya said, I am not a harbor for ships that never dock. The room exhaled with me, and for once, it did not echo his name. Morning arrived but felt like an intruder. I pulled curtains open and sunlight mocked me with brightness I didn't feel. Maya said, I am awake but not alive yet. My phone stayed quiet, the absence heavier than noise. My mother placed breakfast on the table without a word, her silence thicker than judgment. I forced a bite, but it turned to ash. Jonah sent a message with 3 words, proud of you. My chest trembled as though someone finally saw me beyond the wreckage. Maya said, I am still standing, even if standing hurts. I looked at the pile of boxed memories waiting to be shipped away. The house smelled of rain and endings. I walked to the post office with the parcel that carried pieces of what I used to call us. Each step on the wet pavement echoed like footsteps leaving a church after a funeral. Maya said, here are the fragments of your promises. At the counter, the clerk asked if I wanted insurance. I almost laughed, because nothing could insure what I lost. I scribbled his address, my handwriting shaking with finality. The clerk stamped the box and pushed it away. Maya said, now it belongs to distance again. The sound of tape ripping felt like a wound sealing. I walked out lighter and heavier all at once, rain beginning again to trace the edges of my decision. Back home, I sat on the couch and let the silence try to smother me. Instead, I turned on music, not our playlist but songs that did not carry ghosts. Maya said, my breath sounds different when it is only mine. Jonah called, his voice softer, telling me healing is not an exam to pass quickly. I told him I don't know who I am without waiting. He said, then you'll learn. His confidence sounded like sunlight pushing through storm clouds. I leaned back, let the cushions hold me, and felt my chest loosen by inches. Maya said, maybe I can survive this without his shadow. The thought frightened and freed me all at once. The afternoon stretched quiet, but my heart no longer pounded like prey. I found myself cleaning the shelves, removing dust from books I hadn't touched in months. Each small act felt like claiming ground I had abandoned. Maya said, this space belongs to me again. I replaced photos with candles, the flame steady like a promise to myself. My mother peeked in and smiled, not intruding, just watching. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, and rained. For the first time, the silence wasn't violent. It hummed with possibility, not grief. Maya said, this is what rebuilding sounds like. My hands no longer shook. As evening fell, The city outside pulsed alive, but I stayed with my own pulse, slower now, steadier. I journaled in a notebook, words scratching like footsteps into new ground. Maya said, I am writing myself back. The ink stained but also soothed. I did not write his name, only mine, larger than the lines allowed. The room dimmed into amber glow, and I did not fear the dark. Jonah messaged one last time, telling me tomorrow was mine to design. My mother kissed my forehead before bed, like I was both broken and whole. Maya said, tonight I sleep without waiting. The quiet agreed, wrapping me like a quilt stitched from survival. Morning felt less like an intruder, and more like a door cracked open. I brewed coffee that didn't carry his aftertaste. Maya said, today belongs to what survives. The city hummed, and for once it did not feel louder than me. I stepped onto the balcony and let light touch places grief had kept dim. A bird stitched the sky with a line I could almost read. My phone rested inside, quiet as a sealed box. Jonah texted a sun emoji, and nothing else, which somehow said everything. Maya said, I can be soft without being small. Steam rose and drew a gentle veil over what I used to hold. By noon the past knocked the way it always did, disguised as practicality. A message arrived asking if the parcel had tracking. Ethan said, just checking where my things are. My pulse skipped, then corrected itself. Maya said, they are already gone. I typed a brief reply that fit inside a single breath. No apologies, no essays, no echoes to haunt me later. He followed with a sorry that sounded like it practiced in a mirror. I let it sit and starve without a response. Maya said, closure doesn't need witnesses. The day did not tilt, which felt like power I could keep. In the afternoon I opened the gallery that once felt like a shrine. The rooftop photo still glittered like a lie with expensive lighting. I stared until it became shapes without story. Maya said, you do not live here anymore. I moved it to an archive that did not own my hours. The emptier grid looked like clean walls after a painting is taken down. Jonah's call slid in and we talked about a movie neither of us had seen. Laughter arrived and stayed, surprised to be welcome. Maya said, this is what the room sounds like when I am not begging. The quiet agreed, and did not argue. Evening brought Jonah to the cafe where we used to plan brighter days. He arrived with a grin that didn't try to fix me. Jonah said, you look like your name fits again. I laughed because it did. We shared fries and traded ordinary stories that felt like medicine. He asked if I wanted to block Ethan. Maya said, I already did, just not on the app. We toasted with water, and it tasted like rain finally rinsing clean. The street outside glowed, and I did not search its reflections for ghosts. Maya said, I am a place, not a waiting room. The words landed and held. Night returned but did not bring the old ache with it. A final message slid across the screen like a moth to glass. Ethan said, can we talk when things are calmer? Calm arrived without him and asked to stay. I turned the phone face down and felt no tremor. My mother passed the doorway and touched my shoulder, a small benediction. Maya said, I am done learning the same lesson. The room breathed with me, steady and unafraid. I switched off the lamp and let the dark be kind for once. The screen blinked once, then surrendered.